For the Passover reading, I used the Besorah of YHWH. For this reason, this was given to me in a dream. The Father spelled the word Besorah out to me in a dream. And when I woke up and I went to search for it and I found it, you can imagine my amazement. And so I'm using the Besorah to read to you. And I think because the Father wants to point out some things in this book and to show me that even though there are people writing different Bibles and Torahs and things, some of them are using different ways to spell the Hebrew names and everything. And so he wants us to be mindful of and be watchful so that we can recognize the things that we do not embrace. The introduction to the Besorah. The Besorah is the message given to prophets selected by the Creator being, Yahuwah, to all mankind. This message is both a record of specific events and a revelation of the plan of redemption and restoration. The original parents of all mankind were perfect, created to live in Edom, bliss, delight, and they were deathless. They were deceived by a fellow creature that brought doubt into believing the word of Yahuwah, and so they failed a simple test of faith in what he had spoken. Through this error, death entered the world. Life and death are on display throughout the entire message, and Yahuwah calls out to all men to choose life by believing in his word and proving they believe it by obeying him. This choice is made by having faith in his word, the message, Hebrew, Besorah, and living by it. According to the covenant given to a chosen people, he selected Israel. And I'll just say a few more things. It says how this translation is different. I'll just read a couple of sentences. It says, the personal name of the Creator deleted from most English translations, substituted with the word L-O-R-D, Lord, and in some cases the word G-O-D, God. While the true name is restored in its original form in the places it occurs in the inspired text, other names are more accurately transliterated, eliminating the distortions caused by the Greek alphabet. Greek terms such as Genesis and Exodus are accompanied by the authentic Hebrew terms. Hebrew is the Lashon Kodesh, or set-apart tongue. So restoring the names without distortion enables the reader to experience the richness, purity, and authenticity that flows from the unfiltered, inspired words in the Creator's mind. The key of knowledge is the personal name of the Creator, and using it unlocks the message that would otherwise remain sealed from our comprehension. A name uniquely identifies who is being spoken of. The first known translation of Yahuwah's word was made from Hebrew into the Greek language between 285-246 BCE for a Ptolemaic king at Alexandria, Egypt. That translation is often referred to as the Septuagint, or LXX for short. Septuagint is Latin for 70, as traditionally it was assumed that 70 scribes were used to translate the Torah, 5 books of Moshe, into Greek. When they did so, they left the name of the Most High Elohim unmolested, and this translation also does. So what you are holding in your hand is the first time since the LXX that a translation has been made that leaves the original name as it appeared in the Hebrew. Now, as I said to you, we hear many readings about Father's name being left out, and it's spelled different ways. And I just wanted to give you that introduction. So, happy Passover. May the God of Israel continue to bless you as we seek his knowledge and obey the leading of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of truth that has come. And he said, I will lead you into all truth. And that is what he's doing. Shalom. Passover Torah readings. Each day during Passover, we read a different section from the Torah. First day, reading Shemot, Exodus, 12th chapter, 21st through the 51st verses. And Moshe called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, Go out and take lambs for yourselves according to your clans, and slaughter the Passover lamb. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning. And Yahuwah shall pass on to smite the Mizrites, and shall see the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts. And Yahuwah shall pass over the door, and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. And you shall guard this word as a law for you and your sons forever. And it shall be when you come to the land which Yahuwah gives you, as he promised, that you shall guard this service. And it shall be when your children say to you, What does this service mean to you? Then you shall say, It is the Passover slaughtering of Yahuwah, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Mizraim, Egypt, when he smote the Mizrites and delivered our households. And the people bowed their heads and did obedience. And the children of Israel went away and did so as Yahuwah had commanded Moshe and Aaron, so they did. And it came to be at midnight that Yahuwah smote all the firstborn in the land of Mizraim, Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Mizrites, Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Mizraim, Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not a dead one. Then he called for Moshe and Aaron by night and said, Arise, go out from the midst of my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve Yahuwah as you have said. Take both your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and go. Then you shall bless me too. And the Mizrites, Egyptians, urged the people to hasten to send them away out of the land, for they said, We are all dying. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their garments on their shoulders. And the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moshe, and they had asked from the Mizrites, Egyptians, objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And Yahuwah gave the people favor in the eyes of the Mizrites, Egyptians, so that they gave them what they asked, and they plundered the Egyptians, Mizrites. And the children of Israel set out from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides the little ones. And a mixed multitude went up with them too, also flocks and herds, very much livestock. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Mizraim, Egypt. For it was not leavened, since they were driven out of Mizraim, Egypt, and had not been able to delay, nor had they prepared food for themselves. And the sojourn of the children of Israel, who lived in Mizraim, Egypt, was 430 years. And it came to be at the end of the 430 years, on that same day it came to be that all the divisions of Yahuwah went out from the land of Mizraim. It is a night to be observed unto Yahuwah for bringing them out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt. This night is unto Yahuwah to be observed by all the children of Israel throughout their generations. And Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aaron, This is the law of the Passover. No son of a stranger is to eat of it. But any servant a man has bought for silver, when you have circumcised him, then let him eat of it. A sojourner and a hired servant does not eat of it. It is eaten in one house, and you are not to take any of the flesh outside the house, nor are you to break any bone of it. All the congregation of Israel are to perform it. And when a stranger sojourns with you, and shall perform the Passover to Yahuwah, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and perform it, and he shall be as a native of the land. But let no uncircumcised eat of it. There is one Torah for the native born, and for the stranger who sojourns among you. And all the children of Israel did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aaron, so they did. And it came to be on the same day that Yahuwah brought the children of Israel out of the land of Mizraim, according to their divisions. YHWH, chapter 5, verses 2 through chapter 6, stopping at verse 1, and then chapter 7, verse 1. At that time, Yahuwah said to YHWH, make knives of flint for yourself, and circumcise the sons of Israel again the second time. So YHWH made knives of flint for himself, and circumcised the sons of Israel at the hill of foreskins. And this is why YHWH circumcised them. All the people who came out of Mizraim, Egypt, who were males, all the men of battle, had died in the wilderness on the way, after they had come out of Mizraim, Egypt. For all the people who came out had been circumcised, but all the people who were born in the wilderness on the way as they came out of Mizraim, Egypt, had not been circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the nation, the men of battle who came out of Mizraim, Egypt, were consumed, because they did not obey the voice of Yahuwah, to whom Yahuwah swore not to show them the land which Yahuwah had sworn to their fathers, that he would give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. And Yahushua circumcised their sons, whom he raised up in their place, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not been circumcised on the way. And it came to be, when they had completed circumcising all the nation, that they stayed in their places in the camp till they were healed. And Yahuwah said to Yahushua, today I have rolled away the reproach of Mizraim, Egypt, from you. So the name of the place is called Gilgal to this day. And the children of Israel camped in Gilgal, and performed the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening on the desert plains of Jericho. And they ate of the stored grain of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened bread and roasted grain on the same day. And the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the stored grain of the land. And the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. And it came to be, when Yahushua was by Jericho, that he lifted his eyes and looked, and saw a man standing opposite him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Yahushua went to him and said to him, are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said, no, for I have now come as captain of the host of Yahuwah. And Yahushua fell on his face to the earth, and did obedience, and said to him, what is my master saying to his servant? And the captain of the host of Yahuwah said to Yahushua, take your sandal off your foot, for the place where you stand is set apart. And Yahushua did so. Chapter 6, verse 1. And Jericho was shut up tight because of the presence of the sons of Israel, none going out and none coming in. Chapter 7, verse 1. But the children of Israel committed a trespass regarding that which is under the ban. For Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zadai, son of Zara, of the tribe of Yehudah, took of that which is under the ban, and the displeasure of Yahuwah burned against the children of Israel. This portion relates to the events that come before the Exodus, and continues with the plague of the firstborn and the Exodus. It concludes with the different laws involved with eating the Passover lamb. The Maftar portion describes the sacrifices of the day that were brought to the temple. In the Haftarah, we read that the people of Israel celebrated before beginning to fight for the land of Israel. second day. YHWH, which is Leviticus, chapter 22, verse 26 through chapter 23, and stopping at verse 44. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, when a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother. And from the 8th day and thereafter it is acceptable as an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. But do not slaughter a cow or a sheep and its young on the same day. And when you bring a slaughtering of thanksgiving to Yahuwah, bring it for your acceptance. It is eaten that same day. Leave none of it till morning. I am Yahuwah. And you shall guard my commands and do them. I am Yahuwah. And do not profane my set-apart name. And I shall be set apart among the children of Israel. I am Yahuwah, who sets you apart, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt, to be your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. Chapter 23. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The appointed times of Yahuwah which you are to proclaim as set-apart gatherings. My appointed times are these. 6 days' work is done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest, a set-apart gathering. You do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, set-apart gatherings, which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, between the evenings, is the Passover to Yahuwah. And on the 15th day of this month is the festival of unleavened bread to Yahuwah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day you have a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah for 7 days. On the 7th day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest, and he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuwah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath the priest waves it, and on that day when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as a burnt offering to Yahuwah. And its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 completed Sabbaths. Until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, you count 50 days, when you shall bring a new grain offering to Yahuwah. Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread, of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. They are baked with leaven, first fruits to Yahuwah. And besides the bread, you shall bring 7 lambs a year old, perfect ones, and 1 young bull and 2 rams. They are a burnt offering to Yahuwah, with their grain offering and their drink offerings, an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs a year old as a peace offering. And the priest shall wave them besides the bread of the first fruits as a wave offering before Yahuwah, besides the 2 lambs. They are set apart to Yahuwah for the priest. And on this same day you shall proclaim a set-apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it, a law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely reap the corners of your field. When you reap, and do not gather any gleaning from your harvest, leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you have a rest, a remembrance of blowing of trumpets, a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, on the 10th day of this 7th month is the day of atonement. It shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings, and shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And you do no work on that same day, for it is the day of atonement, to make atonement for you before Yahuwah your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. And any being who does any work on that same day, that being I shall destroy from the midst of his people. You do no work, a law forever, throughout your generations and all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings. On the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, you observe your Sabbath. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, speak to the children of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of the 7th month is the festival of booths for 7 days to Yahuwah. On the first day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On the 8th day there shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you proclaim as set-apart gatherings, to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a burnt offering and a grain offering, a slaughtering and drink offerings, as commanded for every day, besides the Sabbath of Yahuwah, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings which you give to Yahuwah. On the 15th day of the 7th month, when you gather in the fruit of the land, observe the festival of Yahuwah for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim for 7 days. And you shall observe it as a festival to Yahuwah for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Observe it in the 7th month. Dwell in booths for 7 days, all who are native Israelites. Dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak of the appointed times of Yahuwah to the children of Israel. 2 Melachim, which is Kings, 2 Kings, chapter 23, verses 1 through 9, and verses 21 through 25. And the sovereign sent, and they gathered all the elders of Yehudah and Jerusalem to him. And the sovereign went up to the house of Yahuwah with all the men of Yehudah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the house of Yahuwah. And the sovereign stood by the column and made a covenant before Yahuwah to follow Yahuwah and to guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws and all his heart and all his being, to establish the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. Then the sovereign commanded Hilkiah, the high priest, and the priests of the second order, and the doorkeepers, to bring out of the Hekal of Yahuwah all the objects that were made for Baal and for Asheroth, and for all the host of the heavens. And he burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and took their ashes to Beth-el. And he put down the black-robed priests, whom the sovereigns of Yehudah had appointed to burn incense, on the high places in the cities of Yehudah, and in the places all around Jerusalem, and those who burn incense to Baal, to the sun, the moon, the constellations, and all the host of the heavens. And he brought out the Asheroth from the house of Yehudah to the Wadi Kidron outside Jerusalem, and burned it at the Wadi Kidron, and ground it to ashes, and threw its ashes on the graves of the sons of the people. I want to pause right here and want you to take note. This book that I'm reading from is called the Besorah of YHWH, which Father gave me in a dream. If you would notice in verse 5, it says, and he put down the black-robed priest. Well, we've not ever read that in any book, so just bear that in mind, because Father wants to show us something about the different books that we read. Because all Father's priests had a certain way that they dressed, and this is in 2 Kings. So you know that they were dressing according to the patterns that Father had given Moses. So right there, we take note of that. That as people are doing these Bibles, they are also interjecting certain things in some of them. Continuing with 21 through 25. And the sovereign commanded all the people, saying, prepare the Passover to Yahuwah your Elohim, as it is written in this book of the covenant. For such a Passover had not been prepared since the days of the rulers who ruled Israel, nor in all the days of the sovereigns of Israel and the sovereigns of Yehudah. But in the 18th year of sovereign YHWH, this Passover was prepared before Yahuwah in Jerusalem. And also YHWH, which is Josiah, put away those who consulted mediums and spiritists, and the household mighty ones and idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Yehudah and in Jerusalem, in order to establish the words of the Torah which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of Yahuwah. And before him there was no sovereign like him, who turned back to Yahuwah with all his heart and with all his being and with all his might, according to all the Torah of Moshe. And after him none rose up like him. The Torah reading tells of a number of laws for sacrifices. It also warns the people not to profane Hashem's name, because he took us out of Egypt. This is followed by a brief explanation of Shabbat, Pesach, Passover, Shavuot, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. In the Haftarah we read how the king commands the people of Israel to keep Passover. This is their first Passover since the reign of the judges. Third day. Reading Shemot 13, verses 1 through 16. Shemot is Exodus. Chapter 13. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, set apart to me all the firstborn, the one opening the womb among the children of Israel, among man and among beast, it is mine. And Moshe said to the people, remember this day in which you went out of Mizraim, out of the house of slavery. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought you out of this place, and whatever is leavened shall not be eaten. Today you are going out in the month of Abib, and it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day is a festival to Yahuwah. Unleavened bread is to be eaten the 7 days, and whatever is leavened is not to be seen with you, and leaven is not to be seen with you within all your border. And you shall inform your son in that day, saying, It is because of what Yahuwah did for me when I came up from Mizraim. And it shall be as a sign to you on your hand, and as a reminder between your eyes, that the Torah of Yahuwah is to be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahuwah has brought you out of Mizraim. And you shall guard this law at its appointed time, from year to year. And it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall pass over to Yahuwah, every one opening the womb, and every firstborn that comes from your livestock. The males belong to Yahuwah. But every firstborn of a donkey you are to ransom with a lamb. And if you do not ransom it, then you shall break its neck. And every firstborn of man among your sons you are to ransom. And it shall be, when your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is this? Then you shall say to him, By strength of hand Yahuwah brought us out of Mizraim, Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And it came to be, when Pharaoh was too hardened to let us go, that Yahuwah killed every firstborn in the land of Mizraim, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I am slaughtering to Yahuwah every male that opened the womb, but every firstborn of my sons I ransom. And it shall be as a sign on your hand, and as frontlets between your eyes. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought us out of Mizraim. We read about the laws of the firstborn humans and animals in the beginning of the Torah reading. There is also a commandment to remember the Exodus, especially when entering the land of Israel. One way of doing this is to educate our children, and another way is to wear tefillin as a bond between us and Hashem. Fourth day, reading Shemot, Exodus 22, verse 24 through chapter 23, stopping at verse 19. And my wrath shall burn, and I shall slay you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If you do lend silver to any of my people, the poor among you, you are not to be like one that lends on interest to him. Do not lay interest on him. If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge at all, you are to return it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. What does he sleep in? And it shall be that when he cries to me, I shall hear, for I show favor. Do not revile Elohim, nor curse a ruler of your people. Do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Give me the firstborn of your sons. Likewise you are to do with your oxen, with your sheep. It is to be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you give it to me, and you are set apart men to me. And you do not eat any meat which is torn to pieces in the field. You throw it to the dogs. Chapter 23. Do not bring a false report. Do not put your hand with the wrong, to be a malicious witness. Do not follow a crowd to do evil, nor bear witness in a strife so as to turn aside after many, to turn aside what is right. And do not favor a poor man in his strife. When you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall certainly return it to him. When you see the donkey of him who hates you lying under its burden, you shall refrain from leaving it to him. You shall certainly help him. Do not turn aside the right ruling of your poor in his strife. Keep yourself far from a false matter, and do not kill the innocent and the righteous, for I do not declare the wrong right. And do not take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the seeing one and twists the words of the righteous. And do not oppress a sojourner, as you yourselves know the heart of a sojourner, because you were sojourners in the land of Mizraim. And for 6 years you are to sow your land, and shall gather its increase. But the 7th year you are to let it rest, and shall leave it, and the poor of your people shall eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field eat. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive yard. 6 days you are to do your work, and on the 7th day you rest, in order that your ox and your donkey might rest, and the son of your female servant and the sojourner be refreshed. And in all that I have said to you take heed, and make no mention of the name of other mighty ones. Let it not be heard from your mouth. 3 times in a year you are to observe a festival to me. Guard the festival of unleavened bread. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Abib. For in it you came out of Mizraim, and do not appear before me empty-handed. And the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors which you have sown in the field, and the festival of the ingathering, at the outgoing of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors from the field. 3 times in the year all your males are to appear before the Master Yahuwah. Do not offer the blood of my slaughtering and leavened bread, and the fat of my offering shall not remain until morning. Bring the first of the first fruits of your land into the house of Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. See, I am sending a messenger before you to guard you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Be on guard before him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he is not going to pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. But if you diligently obey his voice and shall do all that I speak, then I shall be an enemy to your enemies and a distresser to those who distress you. For my messenger shall go before you, and shall bring you in to the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I shall cut them off. Do not bow down to their mighty ones, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but without fail overthrow them, and without fail break down their pillars. And you shall serve Yahuwah your Elohim, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and I shall remove sickness from your midst. Fifth day, read in Shemot, which is Exodus 34th chapter, 1 through the 26 verses. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, Cut 2 tables of stone like the first ones, and I shall write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. And be read in the morning. Then you shall come up in the morning to Mount Sinai and present yourself to me there on the top of the mountain. And let no man come up with you, and let no man be seen at all the mountain, and let not even the flock or the herd feed in front of that mountain. And he cut 2 tablets of stone, like the first ones. Then Moshe rose early in the morning, and went up Mount Sinai as Yahuwah had commanded him. And he took 2 tablets of stone in his hand. And Yahuwah came down in the cloud, and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name Yahuwah. And Yahuwah passed before him, and proclaimed, Yahuwah, Yahuwah, and El, compassionate, and showing favor, patient, and great in kindness and truth, watching over kindness for thousands, forgiving crookedness and transgression and sin, but by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children, and the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generation. And Moshe hurried and bowed himself toward the earth, and did obedience, and said, If now I have found favor in your eyes, O Yahuwah, I pray, let Yahuwah go on in our midst, even though we are a stiff-necked people, and forgive our crookedness and our sin, and take us as your inheritance. And he said, See, I am making a covenant before all your people. I am going to do wonders such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom you are shall see the work of Yahuwah. for what I am doing with you is awesome. Guard what I command you today. See, I am driving out from before you the Amorite and the Kenites and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. Guard yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your midst. But break down their altars and smash their pillars and cut down their Asherim. For you do not bow yourselves to another mighty one. For Yahuwah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous El. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they whore after their mighty ones, and slaughter to their mighty ones, and one of them invites you, and you eat of his slaughterings, and you take of his daughters for your sons and his daughters. Whore after their mighty ones, and make your sons whore after their mighty ones. Do not make a molded mighty one for yourselves. Guard the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days. You eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you in the appointed time of the month of Abib, because in the month of Abib you came out from Mizraim. Everyone opening the womb is mine, and every male firstborn among your livestock, whether bull or sheep. But the firstborn of a donkey you ransom with a lamb. And if you do not ransom, then you shall break his neck. Every firstborn of your sons you shall ransom, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you work, but on the 7th day you rest. In plowing time and in harvest you rest. And perform the festival of weeks for yourself, of the first fruits of wheat, harvest, and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times in the year all your men are to appear before the Master Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel. For I dispossess nations before you, and shall enlarge your borders, and let no one covet your land when you go up to appear before Yahuwah, your Elohim, 3 times in the year. Do not offer the blood of my slaughtering with leaven, and do not let the slaughtering of the festival of the Passover remain until morning. Bring the first of the first fruits of your land to the house of Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. We read about the new covenant that Hashem has made with the people of Israel after they sinned with the golden calf. Now here, when you get to this point, I will put in Bamidbar 28 verses 16 through 25 after, although in the paper you have, you see Shemat and then Bamidbar. So, just want you to know that. I'm reading this after I've read what I just read about the new covenant. Sixth day. I'm reading Bamidbar, 9th chapter, 1 through the 14th verse. And here again, I will also read what it says here. And Bamidbar 28:16 through 25 will be read after the small reading. Chapter 9, 1 through 14. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the 1st month of the 2nd year, after they had come out of the land of Mizraim, saying, Now, let the children of Israel perform the Passover at its appointed time. On the 14th day of this month, between the evenings, perform it at its appointed time, according to all its laws and right rulings. You perform it. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, Perform the Passover. So they performed the Passover on the 14th day of the 1st month, between the evenings in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahuwah commanded Moshe, so the children of Israel did. But there were men who were defiled for a being of a man, so that they were not able to perform the Passover on that day. So they came before Moshe and Aaron that day, and those men said to him, We are defiled for the being of a man. Why are we withheld from bringing near the offering of Yahuwah at its appointed time among the children of Israel? And Moshe said to them, Wait, let me hear what Yahuwah commands concerning you. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, Speak to the children of Israel, and saying, When any male of you or your generations is unclean for a being or is far away on a journey, he shall still perform the Passover of Yahuwah. On the 14th day of the second month, between the evenings, they perform it. With unleavened bread and bitter herbs they eat it. They do not leave of it until morning, and they do not break a bone of it. According to all the laws of Passover, they perform it. But the man who is clean and is not on a journey and has failed to perform the Passover, that same being shall be cut off from among his people, because he did not bring the offering of Yahuwah at its appointed time. That man bears his sin. And when a stranger sojourns among you, then he shall perform the Passover of Yahuwah. He shall do so according to the law of the Passover, and according to its right ruling. You have one law, both for the stranger and the native of the land. Fourth day, Maftar. Maftar means it is the aliyah which is given to the person who will recite the Haftorah, or the one who will recite the blessing for the Haftorah. That's what Maftir means. Now we will read Bimidbar, which is Numbers, 28th chapter, and the 16th through the 25th verse. (28) 16 through 25. And in the first month on the 14th day is the Passover of Yahuwah. And on the 15th day of this month is a festival. For 7 days unleavened bread is eaten. On the first day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work, and you shall bring near an offering made by fire as a burnt offering to Yahuwah, 2 young bulls and 1 ram and 7 lambs a year old, perfect ones they are for you. And their grain offering, fine flour mixed with oil, prepare 3/10 of an ephah for a bull and 2/10 for a ram. Prepare 1/10 of an ephah for each of the 7 lambs, and 1 goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. Prepare these besides the burnt offering of the morning, which is for a continual burnt offering. According to these you are to prepare the food of the offering made by fire daily for 7 days as a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. It is prepared besides the continual burnt offering and its drink offering. And on the 7th day you have a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. The Torah reading begins with different laws, from giving charity to the laws having to do with the actions of the judges. It concludes with the holidays of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, and the commandment to go to Jerusalem and bring sacrifices during the holidays. Still on the 6th day, and I didn't add the reading to the first portion, which is Bimidbar 9, 1 through 14, so I'll have to make this a separate portion. We read about the special laws of Pesach, Shana, the second Pesach. All of those who couldn't bring the Passover lamb during the proper time, either because they were impure or they were too far away, could bring it 1 month later on the 15th of Iyar.